In this video, we are bringing our considerations regarding the question, what if Marcy arrived at Toad Tower and Sasha in Newtopia to an end? Because this is a direct continuation of part 1, make sure to watch that video first if you haven't already, and then come back to this one. Well, before we dive into the 9 possible endings to this timeline, including a very special ending, a super quick recap of part 1 to make sure you remember all the crucial details we'll need in this video. Marcy is caught and imprisoned by the Toad army. Because she can help the Toad soldiers with their various personal problems, Grime realizes he can use Marcy. Thus, she becomes the mastermind behind the arrest of Harpap and the gang. Out of guilt and necessity, she takes it upon herself to save them, causing her to be locked away again, while the Plantars escape to Newtopia. As a consequence of Grime and Marcy basically therapizing each other over the course of the following weeks, Marcy has figured out a way to deal with her friendship issues, and Grime has begun to walk away from his flawed former self. The majority of his development takes place after he loses his rank and is forced to desert the tower. Instead of developing the urge to violently rebel, together with Marcy, he comes up with a scheme to kick off the reformation of amphibian society. This scheme includes seizing control over the entire Toad army and then moving to Newtopia to negotiate. Meanwhile, Sasha is in Newtopia, going from not trusting the king to telling him everything she knows. Her openness doesn't last long though, as she discovers disturbing things in Andrias' secret basement. Besides that, her personality is positively influenced by Yunan and Olivia. Soon, Anne arrives in Newtopia. Then, Marcy and Grime approach the city too. Grime escapes execution by a hair's breadth thanks to Marcy's wits, which Andrias and the core have taken notice of. Given the circumstances, Andrias allows Grime the establishment of a political task force. Because Anne and Sasha didn't support Marcy in saving Grime, they argue, and without exception put it all on the table. Their friendship is in its worst state ever, but not broken. That's when Andrias explains what the calamity box is and that it needs to be recharged. At this point, Sasha manages to connect the dots, figuring out Andrias is deceiving them. For now, she keeps quiet about it, not being sure what exactly his deal is. End of recap. Right before they are supposed to set out for the first temple, Sasha finally decides to fill the others in regarding her suspicions and theories that Andrias might be up to no good. Now they all have a bad gut feeling about the pending mission. They don't really want to do what Andrias tells them anymore, out of fear what could come of it. So, they don't. Instead of the first temple, they take course for Newtopia. In order to not provoke Andrias' evil side, they don't tell him they decided against doing the mission. Their cover story is that they just weren't able to solve the temple's task. Still keeping his cover for now, Andrias accepts the tidings. Sooner or later, if not immediately, he will try to kill the girls and their allies though, seeing that there is no more use for them, except of course for Marcy. At some point during the fight, someone is going to come close to death. Doesn't really matter if it's Sprig, Grime or Yunan. In any case, one of the girls is going to activate her powers and beat the stupid grin out of Andrias' face. Taking into account that no Frobos are present to support him and the calamity box is not recharged, thereby not creating a situation where anyone would be wide open, the good guys can easily flee the castle and retreat to Wartwood. They decide against destroying the box because they still want to go home and because they believe it's best to bring down Andrias once and for all. They enter a phase of training. Owing to Marcy's analytical approach, it doesn't take them long to access and gain control over all 3 powers. As soon as they feel ready to tackle the challenge, the party returns to Newtopia. Well, Andrias is of no interest here. He simply gets stomped. The real issue here is whether the core, who are forced to show themselves after Andrias' defeat, can activate the moon in their original form. If they can't, it's the girls' lucky day. They get to crush the core like a can of Coke. And after that, a cool adventure in this strange world awaits them. With the villains gone, it appears safe to recharge the music box. This is probably a fan favorite ending. The girls go home, keeping the box and merrily traveling between the worlds for all times. But knowing the core, they probably have prepared for Andrias' failure. Thus, assuming they can activate the moon just like in the OT, the girls would have to go into space and try to stop it. We've got video proof that the regular calamity powers do not suffice in bringing the moon to a halt. The only way to achieve that is by using the secret spell, which the girls have never heard of before. But Valeriana and the Mother of Ohms must have told them no. Not having visited the second temple, they never met Valeriana again after the Bizarre Bazaar. For that reason, and the fact that the Plantars did not go to Earth, there is not even the slightest chance they have ever met or even know of Mother Ohms' existence. In other words, here's what would happen in this situation. Moon goes brrr, everyone's dead, and credits start rolling. Every viewer mortified and staring at their screen. Me crying. Bummer, really. Not only did everyone's favorite character just die in front of our eyes, if only they had known the secret spell, something really special could have occurred. Oh wait, that's exactly what we'll encounter on the next route. The girls don't want to recharge the gems, but what other choice do they have? They still wish to return home. Besides, what's Andrias gonna do with the box anyway? Invade Earth? Haha. No, for real. At this point of the story, the girls do not have the slightest idea that they have cool anime powers, and that these powers go inside of the box. See? There's no valid reason for them to believe charging the box is a grave mistake. To that end, they begin the temple missions. What comes next is what I love about this timeline. Remember how each temple did not only confront each girl with challenges, additionally teaching them a lesson in the form of a poem. On the OT, the poems were a contrast to the girls' current selves, except for Ran maybe, explaining the single most substantial life wisdom each of them still had to learn in the subsequent season 3. On this timeline, the girls are almost done learning those lessons. Seeing the gist of their individual issues put into words helps them truly internalizing them. Going through the temple's task, hence practically applying the temple's advice, and then being informed through the poem that they just did apply them, is the last missing piece that finalizes each girl's development. So the awkward phase between them comes to an end, they are back on track of becoming the bestest of friends. Anyway, recharging the gems, Anne loses her powers too, because Sasha is present. Therefore, Anne does not need to hurry back to her group when she hears them scream, knowing that Sasha would be perfectly capable of protecting everyone if necessary. After clearing the third temple, they could teleport to Earth immediately, cutting off Andrias from the box forever. And in contrast to the other what-ifs I've presented you so far, in this one, this ending is not even ruled out as unlikely. First off, none of the girls should have become ensnared by Andrias' empty promises, because they have already undergone their development and would not betray their friends, no matter what Andrias offered in return for the box. Secondly, they hold their suspicions against Andrias. Agreeing that this might be the last chance to leave Amphibia leisurely, they say their goodbyes to their friends and return to Earth, where they get rid of the box for good. Still, we consider the reality that they do return to Newtopia for a few simple reasons. Andrias wants Marcy and the box. Even if he's not specifically manipulating a single girl, he'll cook up any lie in order to get what he wants. It doesn't even need to be very convincing. Just making the girls unsure about the box is enough to get them to return. For example, by telling them only he knows how to work it. If they made a mistake, they could end up being teleported to one of the other worlds in the multiverse. Concerning their return, I'd like to offer two possible endings. After giving the box to Andrias, he reveals his true self. Oh no! Everyone is shooketh. Andrias needs to be defeated. Sorry, no calamity powers anymore. Andrias defeats everyone, Marcy is made core, and they go on to happily invade Earth. Yeah, this ending sucks. To make up for it, I present to you the special ending I promised earlier. Unsure about opening the box themselves, they decide to hand over the box to Andrias. Not being able to shake off their suspicions though, they arranged a backup plan. Yudan sneaks into the throne room, and Grime orders a part of his army to stay alert in Newtopia. As a consequence, after Andrias confirms confirms the heroes were right not to trust him. When he is trying to unlife them all, Yunan drops from the ceiling and steals the box. In the short time, his throwbows could not reach the castle, so that Andrias is basically in no position to get the box back. The toads that have been awaiting orders from Grime stream into the castle to arrest Andrias. Due to all the chaos and excitement, the soldiers do not consider stripping Andrias of his crown. Given the circumstances, not a single soul is going to come to his rescue. But if he does not get free now, the last 1000 years will have been for nothing. He contacts the core, and they agree that in their current situation, there is only one option. The core needs to leave their chamber to break Andrias free. Theoretically, they could go for the calamity box first. However, in their current form, they can't fight that well, particularly not against an entire army. Thus, the risk of being destroyed is too high. So the core emerge from their chamber and run to get Andrias. They are able to do so, because their appearance takes everyone by surprise. But as soon as the girls realize where they are headed, they come back to their senses and immediately jump into action. Undeniably, the most important matter is that Andrias does not get his hands on the box ever again. Especially not now that everyone knows he's working with a monster. To ensure they do not come in contact with the box, they grab it and desert the castle, fleeing back to Wartwood. Honestly, now would probably be the best situation to just go back to Earth. Nah, everyone knows they're not doing that. How could they just leave their friends and all the innocent people of Amphibia behind, knowing for certain that Andrias and the core are going to put them through hell? Can they even do anything about that though? Keep in mind that at this point of the show, the girls have neither heard of the prophecy nor the calamity powers, since they have not met Mother Rome. To that end, they go with the obvious choice, starting a rebellion. Among others, Valeriana hears word of the latest tidings and the responding rebellion, leading up to her joining the group in Wartwood. Because it was never properly revealed how much she really knew all along, we can assume that she either tells the girls about the prophecy and the powers, or that she sends them out to meet Mother Rome. Either way, the girls wind up regaining their full calamity powers. The final showdown can now begin. Without the calamity box, the core could not organize a host body. In their current state, defeating the Powerpuff Girls is plainly impossible. After witnessing them imitate the WWE with Andrias, the core quickly ditches him to fly up to the moon. We assume that they do not need to be in helmet shape to do so, taking into account that the core prepared this as a last backup plan, meaning they likely designed this to work under any given circumstances. Moments later, the girls find themselves in space, unable to stop the moon with their powers. Slowly it dawns on them, there is no alternative to casting the secret spell. But who of them is going to be the one? Originally, Anne applied it. Firstly, because she was the most capable at using the powers. Secondly, because Amphibia meant the most to her. On this timeline, they are all equally proficient in using the powers. Furthermore, it is impossible to determine to whom Amphibia means the most. Taking a look back at everything they experienced down this timeline, we must admit all of them had a pretty great time. All of them gained immeasurably valuable friendships and became better versions of themselves. One might argue that Marcy could use this chance to atone for causing the whole Amphibia story. But in the end, the issues between the girls have already been 100% resolved and should not matter in this situation anymore. For that reason, I propose that Anne, Marcy and Sasha ask for the gem's powers at exactly the same time, trying to decide over the other girls' heads. We have no indication whatsoever of what happens in that case. Two scenarios appear logical. The first one being that, since the Guardian created the gems, it is basically up to them who the powers now flow into. That person will then meet them and the ending plays out like the original. Alternative 2. Why shouldn't it be possible to use the secret spell together? Well, Mother Rome said the spell combines all three gems' powers. But does this necessarily mean they must gather in one person, can't they gather in front of the three, forming a single ball of energy ready to be launched? As a consequence, the strain on the girls is shared, so that none of them dies, which is good, but in return, none of them meet the Guardian who would have provided them with calamity shards to go home. In that case, the girls spend the rest of their lives in Amphibia. Of course, there's no proof that the burden of using the secret spell is split between the girls, or that it doesn't just overpower all of them. What if they all die and meet the Guardian? What do you think? Bearing in mind that each girl fundamentally lived through a flawless character development, aren't they all qualified for the position of the Guardian? I do not think there are any laws applying to the Guardian, so they should not be restricted to appointing only one successor. Instead, by establishing the first Council of Guardians, they could adapt the universe's political system, going from monarchy to democracy. Well, all of this is just fantasizing about the future anyways. For now, the three are able to continue their regular lives on Earth. And with that, dear viewers, we will now walk this What If's final and most exciting route. Ever since I mentioned it for the first time in part 1, you probably asked yourself, what purpose does the task force serve in the story? Why would I go out of my way to mention it in this video if they had no noticeable influence until now? They do have an important part to play on this route. It is around the time when Anne, Marcy and Sasha are at the first temple. The Plantars actually immediately came back to Newtopia after getting the calamity box from Wartwood, because HP is ardent about his work with the task force. Therefore, he does not accompany the rest of the team to the first temple. The members have been intensively working all day long, until they finally reach a breakthrough. They finished the first promising draft of Amphibia's bright future. Not being able to hold their horses, they set course on the throne room straight away to proudly present their results. What they did not expect to see was Andrias pulling a weird lever, then descending into a creepy hidden basement. Hap decides to let Grime and Olivia in on the suspicions Sasha shared with him earlier. Olivia confirms some of the things Sasha saw, as she has also secretly visited the Mossman a few times. Unsure about their next steps, they wait for the girls to discuss their findings. The girls are reconfirmed that Andrias must be lying, so they begin considering their next steps. Olivia isn't okay with this at all. She insists Andrias is a good person and capable leader. There is no way he could be involved in shady schemes. She declares she will become everyone's enemy if they just act on their own now. Hoping to prove his innocence, she proposes they all visit the secret basement together and find solid proof in Andrias' favor or disservice. Similar to the episode Olivia and Yunan, they break into the chamber. While the group deals with their illusions, what should take them all less time than in the OT, since their issues are almost non-existent at this point, the core alerts Andrias, who proceeds to block the way out. His cover is as good as blown, and he won't get another chance as convenient as this one, with all his enemies and the calamity box trapped in one place. Hence, Andrias holds his little speech before uncloaking the core to everyone present. Leaping forward, he aims to yank Anne's bag from her shoulders. Luckily, due to not having possessed the box and it not being fully charged yet, no throwbows have been produced that could lend him any support. The core can't fight outstandingly well in their current state, not to mention that it would be foolish to risk their destruction. Highly outnumbered, Andrias cannot snatch the box from the heroes. Still, he drives them to their limits, leaving them no choice but to make a run for it. Sasha instructs them to jump out of the window, for Jack Sparrow will catch them. Closely followed by Andrias and the core, without the time to argue, everyone obeys. In spite of Marcy's nerd legs having carried her as fast as they could, she reaches the window last. Just as her feet lift off the ground, the core grabs hold of her, dragging her back into the castle. Evidently, it is too late for the others refuses to do anything about it. They must leave her behind. As the distance between them and the castle grows, they can hear the echo of Andrias' voice, sounding behind them to deliver him the recharged calamity box if they want Marcy back. Indeed, Marcy cannot be turned into the core yet. Andrias desperately needs the box to proceed with his plans, and he can't recharge it himself, even if he tried. As expected, the girls cannot abandon their friend, even for the greater good. A few weeks later, they return to Newtopia to exchange the box for Marcy. But of course, they thought of a little trick, hopefully allowing them to rescue Marcy without giving up the box. By the way, Anne does not have her powers anymore. Resulting from Marcy's absence, the Plantars do not watch cute cat videos while Anne is with Valeriana, thus do not scream, what originally made Anne break off the charging. Not risking entering the city, the main characters are gathered in front of the gates, facing Andrias and Marcy standing right in front of the entrance. Anne lays down the box halfway between them, demanding Andrias sends Marcy their way, which he does. When Marcy is right next to the box, the others signal her to grab it. She calmly picks up the box, but to everyone's terror, she makes a 180-degree turn and walks right back into Andrias' arms. Is Marcy betraying them? Didn't they get rid of all the bad blood between them and came all the way back just to save her? They did. What lies concealed to them is the mind control bracelet on Marcy's wrist. Without the calamity box, Andrias did not have the means to build a new one really fit for Marcy. Moreover, the mechanics work a lot less refined if not controlled by the box. That being the case, Andrias improvised by employing an existing collar taken from one of the creatures in the basement that would at least suffice to force Marcy to return to him. Leaving the heroes baffled, Andrias retreats into the castle to complete the possession. He is not yet going after the rest, given that their last encounter proved he cannot take them alone. Well, this seems like total failure, doesn't it? Andrias has the box, Marcy, and no anime powers are left to pick a fight. Haha, I kept a crucial little detail secret from you though. Back at the second temple, Anne met Valeriana. In contrast to the OT, Anne has already learned that recharging the box is what Andrias wants. Even if she still didn't really know what the box is, she was aware Andrias will use it for evil. So on this timeline, Anne took the chance to ask Valeriana all kinds of questions. For example, how charging the box works and what it can be used for. At the same time, she told her about everything that happened with Andrias. Valeriana realized that the prophecy has indeed begun unfolding. Depending on how much she really knows, either she told Anne about the prophecy and the powers herself, or she urged them to visit Mother Rome, who then explained it all, including the powers recovery. Consequently, Anne and Sasha have a final ace up their sleeve. They can get their powers back. Initially, they intended to hold the ritual ASAP after retrieving Marcy, in order to defeat Andrias and the core for good. Under the recent circumstances, the plan has changed. So as to extract the powers, all three girls must be close to the box. Accordingly, Anne and Sasha storm the city, letting themselves be caught on purpose. To make things worse, they are met by Darcy. Is even the backup plan ruined now? If they extract the powers from the box, the core will inevitably gain Marcy's power. This risk must be taken, however, for if they don't, all is lost. The matchup is as follows: full power Anne and Sasha versus Andrias and full power Darcy. In other words, Anne and Sasha versus Darcy, because Andrias is one-shotted 360 no-scope. One might argue Darcy definitely loses, being outnumbered, but let me remind you that in the OT, Darcy did kind of defeat Sasha and Grime on their own. Sashan is a powerful duo, but Darcy, indescribably intelligent, generations of combat experience, enhanced by a calamity power that perfectly suits every single member of the core. I dare say, this is the prophesized calamity. Let's say the chances are pretty much 50-50. no tendency towards the girl's victory, regardless of their access to the secret spell. They are on Amphibia, for Christ's sake. If they activated it, the planet would be ruined. Summed up, either Darcy wins this battle and will spend eternity conquering the multiverse, or the girls win this battle. The girls' victory could once more take two shapes: defeating the core right after they detach from Marcy, enabling them to keep the calamity box afterwards, or having to face the moon and returning to Earth after one of them, or all three of them, cast the secret spell. I am unable to sum up in one sentence what the greatest change would be if Marcy and Sasha switched places. It was crazy. For starters, I am pleased that in some of the happy endings, the girls get to keep the calamity box afterwards. Personally, I have no complaints regarding the original ending, but some of you can surely relate to me that even if we always knew the show was going to end like this, we kind of wished for this outcome. This what if sort of works like a band-aid for me. At least I know that in some parallel universe, Anne and Sprig can still be together. Apart from that, I am very much in love with the rest of this timeline too. Sasha living in Newtopia has the positive effect that she develops into a desirable direction way earlier than in the OT, without causing any real trouble. Overall, she still stays the Sasha we know and love, as she had enough opportunities to show her flaws in the beginning of her stay, while she does not drop to the same level of unlikability as in the OT. Additionally, her presence in Newtopia is remarkably beneficial and one of the most substantial factors in creating happy endings. The fact that she stumbles upon some of Andrias' secrets and happens to share his way of thinking leads to a true color situation at an earlier point in the show, providing the heroes with more time and more possibilities to deal with the betrayal. Marcy being at Tower mainly impacts the emotional dimension of the show, rather than the plot. Makes sense. Her issues are at the heart of the show after all. On this timeline, her development gets the time it deserves and is presented in all its details. By meeting Grime, who has his own issues, she is backed against a wall, unable to run from her own problems any longer, so that she learns to accept her own mistakes, be upfront about them, and realizes the importance of voicing out her emotions to others, negative ones too. Simultaneously, Grime turns into a version farthest from his original self. You can all decide for yourselves whether you like him this way or not, but we must admit that it was exciting getting to know him better, getting a look into his past and motives that made him the rough toad he was at the beginning of the show, especially since these things would basically also apply to the OT, since they refer to a time before the girls appeared. Another aspect making these roots so likable is that this is the first of the what ifs where all three girls make friendships as valuable as in the OT, and I'm genuinely sad I don't get to see these constellations interact on screen. Same goes for all the plot twists. Almost felt like I was writing an episode for Death Note. Anyway, I'd be grateful if you subscribed to the channel or shared the video, because every single sign of support makes it possible for me to keep creating content we can enjoy together. See you next time.